Is here, I thought I'd share a few views with you as to how we can sensitize young people around the world to the threats and challenges that are rapidly emerging, and from which the affluent nations are by no means exempt. In fact, India and the United States, the two largest democracies in the world, must be in the forefront of fighting both terrorism and hunger, as well as leading the way to tackle the problems caused by climate change. If India and the United States between them can make a major contribution to tackling these three great problems that we face, terrorism, hunger, and climate change, then and then only will the future of the human race be assured. In fact, America, it's not an area into which I will enter in detail, but America and the United States have had a tremendous impact upon each other. Our great leaders have influenced each other's countries. Abraham Lincoln and F.D. Roosevelt are held in high esteem in India, as are Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru in the United States. Martin Luther King, of course, and the whole civil rights movement drew its inspiration from Gandhi's teachings. While the American way of life and dress and entertainment is becoming increasingly popular among the more affluent sections of Indian society. The President mentioned my love for rock and roll. I see no contradiction between being a Bharatanatyam aficionado and loving rock and roll, because the music is the same, the beat is the same. It is the beat of Shiva's Damru. Nityavasane natarajarayo nanada dhakkam navapanchavaram uddhartu kaman sanakadi siddhan hetat vimarsham shivasutrajalam. The whole universe, in fact, is beautifully summed up by that image of the Nataraja, the dancing Shiva. The dance, whether it is the dance, the majestic waltz of the galaxies, billions and billions of light years away, or the dance of the minuscule subatomic particles, everything is moving. The whole universe has come out of the original energy and movement. And that is why it is so important, so impressive that we have this great icon that presents a kinetic universe to us. The universities have to play a vital role in this. I must, at this point, bring you greetings, Mr. President and friends, from universities with which I have been associated. There's a Kashmir University, Jammu and Kashmir University, where I graduated when I was the Chancellor. Probably that is the first time in human history that a Chancellor has graduated from his own university. Then Delhi University, where I did my main PhD as a student. Then Jawaharlal Nehru University, of which I was Chancellor for 5 years. And today I am Chancellor of the Banaras Hindu University, which I think, Master Basi, is your alma mater, one of the great universities in India. So I have always been associated with universities, and I feel that they will need to play a critical role in preparing young people for meeting the challenges that lie ahead. As I see it, this involves a fourfold preparation. The first is physical. We need young people with muscles of iron and nerves of steel, as Swami Vivekananda used to say, who are able to become true builders of the future. While this involves development through sports and yoga and other methodologies, it also means that they must avoid poisoning their bodies through tobacco, alcohol, drugs, or unsafe sex. Because physical strength and energy and stamina is something that is still needed. The second dimension is intellectual. With the whole information corpus exploding exponentially, we will need to be careful not to be swept away by the tsunami of facts, and to retain the ability to abstract knowledge from the vast corpus of information that is now available, and from knowledge to distill wisdom. Otherwise, there is so much information now available that it has become now an embarrassment of riches. We've got to have the discriminative intellect, the Pashyanti Buddhi, as they say in our philosophy. And this involves the capacity to develop young minds to continue to ask questions and absorb new knowledge and technologies. America is already in the forefront of in this area, as is clear from the large number of Nobel Prizes that you win. So the development of our minds is the second area of preparation. It's not something that will come automatically. There's the physical aspect, there's the intellectual aspect. The third aspect, lesser spoken about, involves the emotions. We may have fine bodies and sharp minds, but if our emotions are out of control, we do not develop into rounded and fully integrated human beings. Insatiable greed, fear, hatred and violence are quite as lethal as cancer, AIDS or any other fatal illness. Here I must say something which sounds critical today, particularly on Halloween. I feel that the amount of horror and violence that one witnesses on American films is really astonishing. I am unable now even to look at a film. There is so much violence. Surely this must be poisoning the young minds who are put down in front of television sets even before they can walk. All these horrible images, I can never understand why people should go to the movies to be horrified. I can understand people going to the movies to be entertained or to be stimulated. Why should you go to be horrified? Why call upon yourself negative emotions? I remember as a child I saw a film called Frankenstein and I couldn't sleep for months after that. And the other day, one of the channels proudly announced, you can now see your nightmares with your eyes open. What sort of civilization is this we are creating where you want to see your nightmares with your eyes open? So it's sickening violence, it's absolutely terrible. I don't know how the Americans, if where your children study, the water tanks were poisoned, what would you do? You would make a big fuss, you would go to your senator, you would bring it up in but when the minds of your children and grandchildren are being poisoned, nobody's worried. The poisoning of the minds, friends, is every bit as lethal as the poisoning of our bodies. This is something, I know it may not be very popular to say, that too on the night of the bhoots and the prets. Anyhow, I am a worshipper of Lord Shiva, so I am not afraid of Nikhila Bhayaharam Panchabhakram Dinetram. The fourth dimension, I have spoken of the physical, of the intellectual, of the emotional. I am talking of dimensions of preparation of young people, is the spiritual, without which we are left incomplete. The quest for the inner light has been the real goal of all religious traditions in the world, though unfortunately their outer manifestation has often resulted in prolonged conflict and fanaticism that continues down to the present day. I have been involved with the interfaith movement, as was mentioned, for several decades, and this seeks to bring together people of different religious persuasions in a harmonious dialogue. What is really significant is our individual quest towards the light, the inner light. The Bible calls it the light that lighteth every man that cometh into the world. The Buddhists call it the Buddha nature. The Sufis call it the Nur-e-Rohani. And the Hindus speak of the resplendent, immutable Brahman seated in the heart of all beings. Hiranamaya pare koshe virijam brahmanishka. The key idea here is the acceptance of multiple paths to the divine. No one religious system can claim a monopoly of divine wisdom. Because in the final analysis, as the Rig Veda has it, the truth is one, the wise call it by many names. Ekam sat vipraha bahuda vadanti. If young people are to develop all these four aspects of their personalities, then alone will they be able to fulfill their individual and collective destiny.